I'm Randy Akers, Executive Director of South Carolina Humanities, and I'd like to welcome you to the 32nd annual presentation of the Humanities Awards. This is a day that we look forward to all year long in our office. It's a day filled with excitement, as we seem to already encounter, as we gather to honor on this particular day 5 outstanding individuals who have distinguished themselves in the humanities and have impacted the lives of thousands, both in state and out of state. And I salute all 5 of you winners today, and we'll, of course, be talking more about you immediately. But thank you, all 5 winners. Congratulations. A couple of quick housekeeping chores. Please turn off your cell phones. The ceremony today will be videotaped and will be available on the South Carolina Humanities YouTube channel for folks to see who may not be able to be with us today and would like to see the ceremony. The flowers on your table have been brought to us by Dr. Alice Taylor Colbert, and she advises me that she wants everybody to take them home. She doesn't want all of them, and I don't want all of them, and they're beautiful. So please, at your table, if you're a sponsor at your table, you can decide who gets the flowers. If there are no sponsors at your table, you can fight among yourselves. But please, on your way home today, take the flowers. Claflin University is here today, Dr. McGee and his colleagues, and we're, of course, glad to have them here today, but they have a busy day ahead of them because not only are they participating in this, but tonight, down in Orangeburg, the 30th Annual South Carolina Humanities Festival begins, and it goes from tonight through Sunday. Claflin is a host along with the city and county of Orangeburg, and we're looking forward to that event. And did you bring flyers, Isaiah? Anybody bring some flyers? Yeah, they brought some flyers if you'd like to take a flyer. Many of us like to take day trips in South Carolina and see what's going on around the state. And this weekend, it'd be a great time to be in Orangeburg. We have a full program today, so please go ahead and eat. Eat during the program. This is not being rude. And enjoy your meal, enjoy, of course, the company around your table. But we have several speeches and several things to do, and so please go ahead and eat during the process of our program. October is National Arts and Humanities Month, and I believe this will be one of the largest events in South Carolina to honor the arts and humanities this month. In fact, we're making history today. This, in 32 years, is the largest attendance ever for an awards ceremony. We have approximately 225, and I know there's a few more than that, so we're going to be pushing 230 today. Our previous record was 205, so this is an epic day in the life of humanities in our state. And I do want to also recognize our wonderful, wonderful sponsors. This year, for the first time ever, we sold more than 30 tables for sponsors. If you take a look on the back of your program, you're going to see an awful lot of organizations, institutions, individuals who are sponsors. I'm not going to recognize all of you by name, but if you are a sponsor, please stand up for a second and let us thank you for making today possible. I also want to recognize the staff of South Carolina Humanities. These are the folks who keep me, or try to keep me, in line during the year and who make events like this possible. I want to recognize our Assistant Director, Teresa T.J. Wallace, Sarah Rosenbaum, our Operations Director, Ty Barnes, our Communications Coordinator, and our consultant, Dr. Alice Taylor Colbert. And all of these folks have worked very hard to make today possible. We're very fortunate to have two presenting sponsors with us this year, University of South Carolina Upstate and Lacy Ford and Janet Hudson, and we appreciate them and look forward to some remarks from our presenting sponsors. First, representing USC Upstate, Chancellor Dr. Benny Harris. He's the fifth chancellor to lead the University of South Carolina Upstate. Came in July of 2021, where he fulfills his purpose to inspire and develop young people to change the world. He believes higher education offers uniquely transformative opportunities for students to experience possibilities and fulfill their dreams. His vision for elevating USC Upstate's profile in the region resulted in a rebranding campaign that invites the extended Upstate community to reach greater heights. The campaign captures the aspirational nature of learning at USC Upstate and encourages students, faculty, and staff to pursue innovative ideas and excellence. He earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Industrial Engineering from Mississippi State University, a Master of Business Administration in Strategic Marketing from Washington State University, and a PhD in Strategic Educational Marketing from the University of Alabama at Birmingham. He served in increasingly crucial roles at Washington State University, the University of Alabama at Birmingham, DePaul University, Lipscomb University, and at the Morehouse School of Medicine, where he was Senior Vice President for Institutional Advancement until his appointment at USC Upstate. Dr. Harris, we welcome you to the podium.
Is it afternoon yet? Almost. Got 1 minute before the afternoon. But good afternoon. I'm very excited to be here. I want to acknowledge members of my team from USC Upstate. If you would stand, please, and both our alums, our friend, our commissioner, if you will all stand. And we are all here in support of Dr. Araceli Hernandez LaRoche. Please give her and them a round of applause. Thank you all very much. One of the things that makes this event and this opportunity so amazing, so wonderful, is that we're able to honor the humanities and all those who participate in the humanities. There's still a lot of conversation in particularly states like South Carolina, where it's highly manufacturing, whether or not the humanities are of importance to our institutions and to our states. And the answer is a resounding yes. The work that I see our faculty do in this humanities and preparing people to think, to create, to innovate, again, elevates why it is so important. When I talk to folks about the number of CEOs or politicians, they really come from the humanities. They are economics majors and political and language majors, et cetera. And so this is really, really important. I'm so excited about the commitment that you all have and that you all are definitely making. So when I was, oftentimes I talk to my students about how to live life, how to be in a position where you learn more. And I always share this story about my mother, who tells me, when I went to college, I'm an engineer by the way. I didn't graduate from the humanities, I graduated as an engineer. But I came home one day from Mississippi State, having graduated, came home, and after that first year, I felt I knew more than I actually knew. And so, if you grew up in a Mississippi family, I was called probably a smart mouth. And so she sat me down, and she said to me, "Benny, your cup is too full." I'm trying to remember what she was talking about. I said, "Your cup is too full. You need to live life with an empty cup. There should always be room in your cup to receive input and knowledge from others. You can always empty out what you don't want when you leave, but you have to have the humility to sit down and let others pour into your cup." And I think humanities really, when I think about that illustration, humanities really, for me, is about that. How do we as a society have a cup that we allow folks to pour into it, to learn different languages, to learn different about anthropology, to learn about culture, to learn about experiences, and all of those things create a place where we can really value others and respect where others come from. And so if I leave you with anything, I'm leaving you with thinking about how do you have this empty cup that allow others, that allow the humanities to pour into it, that makes life so much more colorful, interesting, fulfilling, and having those experiences where we all become better people as a result of learning from each other. So again, on behalf of, I'm going to say Dr. Araceli Hernandez LaRoche, really on behalf of her, because I'm here because of her, and USC Upstate, I want to thank you for the opportunity to make a few remarks here. Enjoy your meal. There was a dessert that I really look forward to eating. And I generally eat my dessert first because there's a quote that says, life is short, eat dessert first. Thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor Harris. And now, representing Lacy Ford and Janet Hudson, I'd like to introduce Dr. Orville Vernon Burton. Vernon is the Matthew J. Perry Distinguished Chair of History and Professor of Global Black Studies, Sociology, and Anthropology, and Computer Science at Clemson University. Vernon taught for 34 years at the University of Illinois, where he is Emeritus University Distinguished Teacher, Scholar, and Professor of History, African American Studies, and Sociology. His research and teaching interests are American history, with a particular focus on race relations and community. He served as president of the Southern Historical Association, the Agricultural History Society, and is a member of the South Carolina African American Heritage Commission. He was inducted into the Martin Luther King Jr. Collegium of Scholars at Morehouse College and received the Southern Historical Association's John Hope Franklin Lifetime Achievement Award. He is a prolific prize-winning author. His Age of Lincoln in 2007 won the Chicago Tribune Heartland Literary Award for nonfiction and was selected for the Book of the Month Club, the History Book Club, and the Military Book Club. In 2015, he was inducted into the South Carolina Academy of Authors. In 2017, he won a Governor's Award in the Humanities. And in 2021, he was presented the Benjamin Mays Legacy Award. But maybe one of the things that Vernon is most proud of and considers most important is he's from 96, South Carolina. So I'd like to introduce Vernon Burton.
Well, welcome everyone, and those of you who support the humanities, and particularly my friend Lacy Ford, to be recognized at this occasion. Humanities explore the human condition. They demand we question everything for analysis and evaluation, and basically for deeper understanding. The human past is us. As William Faulkner admonished, it is not even past. Humanities foster cultural awareness and appreciation for diversity. We live in a diverse and transnational world, and we need application of various cultures and appreciation. While I believe in science and STEM and engineering, Chancellor, and would never denigrate or suggest we do not appreciate or need STEM education, we cannot stop with that. As I've often said, two things changed the American South: the Voting Rights Act and air conditioning. And we understand how air conditioning works better than we do the Voting Rights Act. It is so important to democracy that we have the humanities. We need more than math and science, and we need the humanities to make sense of scientific advancements. Just think about AI going on now, as an example. We, the humanities, as we look to future generations, our decisions today affect them. The humanities charge us to be ethical and thoughtful. As Nicholas Vaishny, my friend and dean at Clemson Arts and Humanities, reminds us, among the academic disciplines, the humanities always have been a disruptor. Humanities disrupt things by stirring up the mixture and often complicating oversimplified narratives. To paraphrase in my language of faith, humanities troubles the waters. As we are about to begin celebrating the 250th celebration of the American Revolution, which South Carolinian Walter Edgar keeps reminding us how important it was in the American Revolution, that is our state, South Carolina. It's good to know that, in fact, the questioning of the Revolution, perceived truth, the ideals of the American Revolution trouble the waters and change the hierarchical structures of monarchy to proclaim in the Revolutionary Declaration of Independence that all men are created equal, which was later extended to all peoples. South Carolinians initiated a civil war, resulting in the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the United States Constitution, which troubled the waters and changed the meaning of liberty to guarantee rights and the rule of law. Again, in South Carolina, look what trouble was caused when parents in Clarendon County asked for gas for a school bus, and then the end of segregation. That case, Briggs v. Elliott, some of you may know it by Brown v. Board, but we call it Briggs v. Elliott in South Carolina. And it put the country on the path to ending legal Jim Crow that led to the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which guarantees the rights of equality to all people, Native Americans, women, gender issues, the disabled, and even old people like me. In sum, learning about history, philosophy, religion, literature, language, art, cultural anthropology offers the opportunity to evaluate anything and everything. Troubling the waters is not popular, but it's necessary. Thanks to Randy Akers and the staff of the South Carolina Humanities Council, the humanities have a voice in our state and continue to have a meaningful impact and influence. In conclusion, my wife said to always say that to give some hope to the audience. And I'm thrilled that the South Carolina Humanities Council has selected Lacy Ford, who so well deserves it, to receive the Governor's Award this year. Ford is a great humanities scholar who has always been quiet, unpretentious, clear-sighted, and hardworking. He loves South Carolina. He has a true vision for the humanities education. Lacy Ford understands that history and the humanities matters, and better than anyone, he explained to us why we as South Carolinians are as we are. I want you to know that this South Carolinian knows how to use the humanities to trouble the waters for justice. Congratulations, Lacy, my friend.
Thank you, Dr. Burton, and you represent 96 very well. So at this time, I would call our board chairman, David Hodges from Columbia. David's been with us 6 years, has done a masterful job of trying to keep us all together and in line and moving forward. And David's going to be in charge of the rest of the program. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Randy. It's a pleasure to be here today, and thank you for being here. We have some folks I'd like to introduce. We have former Governor Award winners in the audience, and I'd like to read their names. And if you are here, still here, I would like for you to stand until I've read them all. The former Governor's Award winners are Veronica Gerald, Vernon Burton, John Tuttle, Betsy Teeter, Tom Mack, Kim Jeffcoat. I'm sorry, not you. I'm sorry, not you, Kim. Charles, not that you're not qualified. Charles Israel, Sarah June Goldstein. Thank you for being here. Okie dokie. Now we're going to talk about the South Carolina Humanities board members, the former board members who are here. Also, please stand Jane Zinger, Blanche Primo Hopkins, Joe Angela Edwins, Tom Mack, Kim Jeffcoat, Peggy Ratliff, and Alice Taylor Colbert. Thank you. We have a number of current board members here, which we're thrilled to have. Over half the board is here. These folks, please stand. Tom Crosby, Brenton Brown, who will become the vice chair of the board in a couple of weeks, James Smith, Bonnie Hargrove, Dolly Newhouse, Otis Pickett, Allie Crandall, who will become the secretary of the board, Jennifer Thomas, who will become the chair, Isaiah McGee, Lucas McMillan, Richard Brown, who is the current secretary, and new board members who have just been elected, Charles McDonald, Floyd Nicholson, and Bill Comer. We have special guest here today, the president of the University of South Carolina, Michael Emeritus. The president of Columbia College, John Dozier. John, welcome back to Columbia. We had a choice. Either we could have the former president of the University of South Carolina, Harris Pastides, or his wife, Patricia. So we chose Patricia. Where is she? Where is she? And we have a South Carolina representative from District 29 in Gaffney, Dennis Moss, who is sitting with Bill Comer. We have some awards to give out, which is why you're here. This is the first year of the Akers Prize, formerly known as Fresh Voices in the Humanities. The intent of the Akers Prize is to recognize individuals who are using culture and history to bring people together, but whose efforts may have gone relatively unnoticed. The South Carolina Humanities Board this year voted to name the Akers Prize after Randy Akers, the longest-serving humanities executive director in the United States with 35 years. We have two Akers Prize recipients today. Araceli Hernandez LaRoche speaks 4 languages, only one of which she and I share. She's a professor of modern languages at USC Upstate, where she founded the South Carolina Centro Latino, the state's first university-based center for the study of Hispanic and Latino cultures. She's a former president of the South Carolina chapter of the American Association of Teachers of French, and was named an American Association of State Colleges and Universities Emerging Leader in 2021. She was recognized as the 2020 Career Woman of the Year by the Business and Professional Women of South Carolina, and as the 2020 Inclusion Advocate of the Year by one Spartanburg. Please welcome Araceli Hernandez LaRoche. We're going to get a picture first. Yes, please.
Hola. Bonjour. Buongiorno. Hello. It's an immense honor to be here with you today. I usually don't read a speech, a tiny speech, but this time I must, because there are so many people that I need to thank. But it's such an honor to be here with you today because the humanities connects us, especially in moments of war and peace. Jean-Paul Sartre, the French public intellectual that I studied the most in my youth, who spoke out against colonization, oppression, violence, and spoke up in times of war and peace, said, "Commitment is an act, not a word." I have many people to thank for their acts, their commitments. Chancellor Benny Harris and Provost Pam Steinke, thank you for consistently showing up to our El Centro Public Humanities events. Community members, and especially our first-gen students, love to be in dialogue with you. Thank you. Dan Mayer, CEO of the Spartanburg, of the Chapman Community, Chapman Center, Cultural Center, thank you for allowing me to grow as a leader by giving me the opportunity to serve on so many committees. Brent and Judy Bynum, gracias for your fierce commitment to the arts and humanities, as well as Anne Flynn and Scott Stephens. Thank you. Dean John Barnett, my favorite dean, gracias, merci for hosting this semester a Latino Caribbean Indigenous Film Festival and for all the cultural plotting we will continue to do. Gloria Bain, thank you for allowing us to publish your poetry in Spanish in our open access migration book that has been downloaded in more than 24 countries. Gracias, amiga. Miguel Cabral and Enrique Pasillas, thank you for traveling from Los Angeles and following me to France and Berkeley during the milestones of my career. Thank you, USC Upstate colleagues and friends. Thank you, colleagues Dave Marlowe and Bridget Kirkland and other dear friends for your nomination. Thank you, John and Kelly Swift, for establishing the first El Centro scholarships. Your donation of $50,000 supports our students, documented and undocumented. Gracias. Merci, Cassie Tanks, Northeastern doctoral students, and USC Upstate Jasmine Alizalde for our multi-generational public Black Paris Public Humanities Project. Gracias, Dana Lopez and Alexander Segarra from Mexico and Peru for using your creativity, your marketing creativity to show the impact of El Centro. My husband, François Laroche, merci, je t'aime, tu es ma roche. Maria Francisco Monteso, I love you too. Mil gracias. Thank you for co-founding El Centro and for pouring a zillion hours and tons of love to El Centro. Together, we are unstoppable. One of my mentors is also here, Dr. Melissa. We love you too. And I also want to thank the Modern Languages Association for flying me around the country to talk about the public humanities. Why is the public humanities important? Yes, traditional scholarship is important in our universities, but at a public regional institution like ours at USC Upstate, it's so important to connect our curriculum to community needs. As a first-gen full professor Latina, I'm the first Mexican-American professor at USC Upstate to earn tenure. I'm the first Hispanic professor to go through the ranks to become a full professor. Every single day, I know that I'm only part of the 1% in the country of full professors. So my voice is not that strong, but you today, South Carolina Humanities Council, you're amplifying my voice. You're making more visible the work of South Carolina Centro Latino. As Dolores Huerta continues to teach us, si se puede, yes we can. As Cesar Chavez said, preservation of one's culture does not require contempt or disrespect for other cultures. Gracias, merci, grazie, shukran. Thank you.
Our second Akers Prize recipient is Dr. Doyle Stevick. He is the founder and executive director of the Anne Frank Center at the University of South Carolina that opened in 2020. He earned degrees in classics, history, and mathematics at Penn State, and he earned his PhD in history, philosophy, and education policy studies at Indiana University. Later encounters with racist extremism drove him to explore the power of education to undermine prejudice, which caused him to change his focus to the field of Holocaust education, the subject of his last 3 books. The Anne Frank Center in Columbia has hosted over 10,000 visitors, mostly students, since opening in 2021. 15 traveling exhibits have allowed the Anne Frank Center to reach more than 50,000 people last year in 21 states. The Anne Frank Center in Columbia is one of 3 partner sites in the world with the Anne Frank Center in the Netherlands. Dr. Doyle Stevick.
I received this award with a grateful but heavy heart. These are horrifying times. What's the point of the war? Why, oh why, can't people live together peacefully? Why all this destruction? Asked Anne Frank in her diary, May 3rd, 1944. The humanities are an attempt for adults to keep in focus the questions that children ask so urgently. We need the humanities to handle times like these. Does Holocaust survivor Dan Pagas's poem, called Written in Pencil in the Sealed Freight Car, capture the feeling we're grappling with today? Here in this railway car, I am Eve, with my son Abel. If you see my older boy Cain, the son of man, tell him I am proud that my daughter is a comparative literature major. You should see the looks we get. I'm proud that my son, an engineering major, texted me 2 pages from his literature course book, Into the Wild, yesterday, because a scholar who gazed into the abyss of Nazi experiments on Jews in the camp Vapniarka, a camp I had never heard of, and one of 43,000 sites where the Nazis held Jews against their will, was able to solve the mysterious death of the book's protagonist, Christopher McCandless. I'm proud that 10 days ago I bought 2 children's picture books for myself. I needed the art and the simple wisdom from this amazing literature. Old Turtle and the Broken Truth invites humanity to recognize that our beautiful truth, that we are loved, will forever be incomplete until we recognize our human wholeness. We are loved, and so are they. I'm proud that I get to carry the name of Randy Akers and be reminded of his legacy on my CV for the rest of my life. I'm grateful that I had the support of my College of Education and the University of South Carolina and the state of South Carolina to build something unique right here in Columbia, South Carolina. Those who remember remind us that we have come through the worst of times. I'm grateful for our students. One, Claire Mattis, posted our latest podcast this morning. It was an interview with Holocaust survivor Anne Axelrod, who was born in Hungary on August 25th, 1929, just 2 weeks after Anne Frank. In an interview on the podcast, Imagining Anne, Anne Axelrod reflected that Anne Frank's dreams and hopes were very similar to mine. I'm just so sorry that she perished. I wished she would have survived. I would have loved to have met her. With all that she went through, she still thought there was some good in people. And I feel the same way, because even though it was terrible, terrible times, terrible places, but there were a few good people everywhere. She concluded, maybe someday I'll meet you at the museum. It is not to be. And Axelrod passed away yesterday at the age of 94. May her memory be a blessing. How was it that Anne Frank was able to learn about gas chambers and then pen words like these? It's difficult in times like these. Ideals, dreams, and cherished hopes rise within us only to be crushed by grim reality. It's a wonder I haven't abandoned all my ideals. They seem so absurd and impractical. Yet I cling to them because I still believe, in spite of everything, that people are good at heart. South Carolina Humanities has helped us to bring a message of hope and resilience to thousands of South Carolina children, and for that we are eternally grateful. Thank you.
The Governor's Awards have multiple purposes. The Governor's Award recognizes achievements in humanities research, teaching, and scholarship. The Governor's Awards recognize helping South Carolina communities better understand our cultural heritage, ideas, and issues relating to the humanities. The Governor's Awards recognizes excellence in defining South Carolina cultural life to others in the world. And the Governor's Awards recognizes exemplary support for public humanities programs. We have 3 Governor's Award recipients today. Cindi Boiter is the 2011 founder and editor of Jasper Magazine, an all-arts magazine devoted to the South Carolina Midlands area artists, and arts organizations. After 4 years, the Jasper Magazine became the Jasper Project, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. The Jasper Project has no paid employees, but enjoys a robust board of directors. Cindi is a 6-time winner of the South Carolina Fiction Project, the winner of the Piccolo Fiction Project, the winner of the Porter Fleming Award for Fiction, the 2014 recipient of the Elizabeth O'Neill Verner Governor's Award for the Arts, and the 2018 recipient of the Lucy Hampton Bostic Award. She has written or edited more than 10 books. Cindi Boiter.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Governor Hodges, as well as South Carolina Humanities. I made notes. Also, congratulations to John and Lacy, who have not been up here yet. Lacy, we went to graduate school together, but I think you must have finished your PhD because you've done very well for the history department at USC. In 2011, when we started Jasper Magazine, what we wanted to do was to honor artists who create the culture that makes our lives so wonderful. We wanted to bring artists from different disciplines together. We wanted to support them, promote them, but mostly from the seed from which Jasper grew was how I felt in 1993 when I went to the mailbox and opened a letter from the South Carolina Academy of Artists telling me that I had won the fiction project. I had published other things in magazines and such, but that letter represented to me validation. And even though I was never going to be a famous writer, I felt like an artist. I was a writer. And that validation to be able to help recognize the artists, incredibly talented artists in Columbia, in the Midlands, and in South Carolina, who will never be in the right place at the right time, but are still incredibly talented and have so much to give to our culture. After we started Jasper Magazine, my husband and I started in 2011, Ed Madden came along. Ed was one of the original staff members, and Ed and I started a literary journal called Fall Lines with the financial support of Richland Library, One Columbia, and when Jonathan Houtt was at USC Press. We're publishing our 10th issue this year. Wade Sellers came along. We started a Second Act Film Festival, and we were able to help produce 70 independent films from filmmakers in our area. And believing that history isn't really accurate until the artists interpret it. Other opportunities caught our eyes, helping us bring artists from different disciplines together, hoping that they would not only enjoy learning about the methodologies that each discipline brings to the table, but that artists would come out of their disciplinary silos and inspire each other, and that collaboration would come out of it. And it has. We've been able to recognize things like the sesquicentennial of the burning of Columbia, and the eclipse. And during COVID, we were able to bring a project together that had visual artists and literary artists working together. Ultimately, in 2019, though, my dream was able to come true, which was to create the supper table. And the supper table was a commemoration of the 40th anniversary of Judy Chicago's The Dinner Party. But we were able to bring 60 women artists from the area together from 4 different disciplines to work on a project. So I'm very proud of that. After we became a nonprofit, Wade Sellers came along as he's our current board of directors president. And Wade has helped us sort of double down on what our priorities are, what our values are. We started the Playwright series with John Tuttle. We've just published our second book, our second play that's in the Library of Congress, and that's one of the things that we try to do, is we try to create a book out of as many projects as we can to preserve for posterity what South Carolina artists are doing and get it in the Library of Congress. South Carolina too often has a reputation for doing silly things. I want people to know what important and creative things we're doing. We never charge an artist to participate. We try to make money as unimportant as possible, as much as we recognize that all artists should be paid, and as much as we are sure to always pay any artist for their contributions to us. But the way we're able to do this is because of that robust board of directors, because of our guild members, because of the organizations and institutions that sponsor Jasper in our magazine and in other activities, other events that we create. So we're still completely dependent upon the folks who are willing to put the work in. And so I'd really like to ask all the current, like the past and present members of the Jasper Project Board of Directors to stand, along with my family, along with the families of those members of the Board of Directors, because everybody, if you become a part of the Jasper family, your whole family is part of the Jasper family. So can everybody stand, please? And these folks are the ones who deserve a round of applause. Thank you. I wouldn't trust me with it.
John Lane is an Emeritus Professor of Environmental Studies at Wofford College. He is the author of a dozen books of poetry and prose. In 1995, he and his wife Betsy Teeter co-founded Spartanburg's Hub City Writers Project. In 2002, Hub City received the Elizabeth O'Neill Verner Governor's Award for the Arts. In 2013, Upstate Forever named him Clean Water Champion, and the South Carolina Wildlife Federation named John the Water Conservationist of the Year. In 2014, John was inducted into the South Carolina Academy of Authors. John Lane.
So usually when I'm standing up here like this, I'm reading poetry or prose, and I'm never nervous, and I'm very nervous today. So as Araceli suggested, it might be good to read some notes. When she was here, she was reading as well. Thank you, Randy Akers, TJ Wallace, the whole Humanities SC staff. Thanks to my wife, Betsy, my sister, Sandy, and brother-in-law, Don, who are here today, and thanks to the rest of my family, including my mother and father, who have passed on. I got to tell just a tiny little anecdote here. I woke up this morning and told Betsy that last night I dreamed that my mother had my notes to my speech on her phone, on her cell phone. She never had a cell phone. She died about 15 years ago, and that I was lost without these notes. So if I stumble, you can blame my mother for having those notes. Thanks also to my Wofford community, the Hub City Writers Project staff and board, and especially thanks to Lucas McMillan and Jonathan Haupt and whoever else may have nominated me. Thanks to those who wrote letters on my behalf. Tom Mack says I should thank him personally. Preparing for this honor, I looked back on my long life in the humanities. BA in English and Religion, MFA in poetry, and I also began thinking about Humanities SC's public mission to enrich the cultural and intellectual lives of all South Carolinians. I did not come from a particularly bookish family of multi-generational liberal arts majors. I stand before you closing in on 50 years after graduation from college, a South Carolinian enriched both intellectually and culturally. How did it happen? I, for one, emerged as a humanist over a lifetime of powerful encounters with books and conversations with others, some by chance, some by spooky synchronicity, and some institutionally engineered. Here I'd like to briefly outline a few of the institutional settings where South Carolina Humanities SC may have had a hand. It was at the 1988 South Carolina Connections Literary Festival that I first really felt a part of a vibrant literary scene in South Carolina. That year, the South Carolina Arts Commission, along with the Humanities Commission and others, created a world-class 3-day event in Charleston, and it included more than 80 writers, and I was lucky enough to be one of the presenters, though at that time, my only publication consisted of a tiny poetry press book. Then, in the early 90s, I played the role of scholar and discussed some of my favorite novels in multiple Let's Talk About It book groups all over the state. I bet nobody's ever mentioned Let's Talk About It from, from this stage. And then every year, the Humanities sponsored a Humanities Festival in a community in South Carolina. In 2003, I was on the festival committee when it came to Spartanburg, and the theme was Changing Minds of the South, a title borrowed from W.J. Cash's social history, The Mind of the South. I hope that some of the programming that week, including the performance of a song cycle based on William Faulkner's As I Lay Dying, did change a few minds. Beginning in 1997, for 20 years, I served as a panel moderator, presenter, and passionate book wrangler for the Hub City table at the South Carolina Book Festival. I don't think we ever missed a festival as our press and the festival both grew and flourished together. And I really, that is one of the things I think I miss most in the state of South Carolina, is that Humanities SC-sponsored book festival. It was fabulous, and I hope someday somebody writes a great book about it. It would be a remarkable story. At Hub City, which is now closing in on 30 years old, Humanities SC has shown generous support over the years and helped fund activities around our important book, South of Maine, and more recently, helping authors in the schools. Finally, I ended my 32-year teaching career at Wofford as the humanities arm in South Carolina's only fully interdisciplinary environmental studies program. And I believe our program would never have happened if the humanities had not been emphasized so much in my education. So the humanities are important in so many ways, but not least of all, these spaces that can be created, this landscape where creative types can thrive and interact. Over decades, South Carolina has offered me many niches and habitats, and may it continue. Thank you again for this honor. Thank you, that'd be great. An old man needs that.
Lacy Ford was chair of the USC Department of History from 2007 until 2010. He then became the senior vice provost and dean of graduate studies until 2016, when he became the dean of the USC College of Arts and Sciences until 2020. He was twice a National Endowment for the Humanities Research Fellow and once an ACLS Fellow, American Council of Learned Societies. His book, Deliver Us from Evil, The Slavery Question in the Old South, was reviewed in a 2009 issue of the New York Times Book Review and won the Mary Lawton Hodges Prize for Best 2009 Book of the South. Lacy Ford.
Thank you. My remarks are mostly thank you, and thank you for the people who've helped me get here over 7 decades of life. It takes a lot of support to do whatever you do, and I feel very fortunate with the support that I've had. I'm going to start sort of in the middle of that picture and thank first my family, my wife Janet Hudson, my son Travis Hudson, my granddaughter Emma, and Cheryl, wife and mother, for the support they give me every day, every week for the past, 26 years now, some portions of the mix in. My daughter Sonia and her husband Will Sonneman have 2 boys and live in Eastern Maryland and couldn't be here. I can assure you that those 2 boys, who are a little under 4 and a little under 2, would be exploring every aspect of this facility to find out what's in there, what they could do with it, how they could make it work for them. And you'd have to keep an eye on what they were doing. I think it's very unusual, and it's very gratifying to me, and it's been a lot of support to me. That Jerry Helms, who's with us today, has been my best friend since we were in first grade together. There's never been a time since first grade that Jerry wasn't my best friend. And we did a lot. We achieved a lot. We had a lot of fun. We probably got ourselves into some mischief, but not too much. And that's a long friendship in the world today. It really is, and it's a treasured and pressured one. I've known Irene since they were courting for their marriage, which has been a good while ago now. I won't give years, and she never missed a beat. She just joined in with us, and it worked. Moving along sort of chronologically, I'm going to say high school, could be junior high. I met Hank Owen. Hank didn't go to elementary school with us. He lived in town and went to the town high school, and he was a graduate a year earlier than me in Clover High. Hank and Jerry and I all were on a team, the High Q team. It was kind of like a college bowl thing for high school out of WSPA-TV in Spartanburg. And we participated after our junior year, after Hank's senior year, and we won 3 straight and got to retire undefeated. And I think Clover High School was not one of the big high schools. And it was we beat at least 2 schools that were a lot bigger than us, and maybe all 3 of them, and we were quite proud of that. And Hank then went on to Clemson, and without damage to the friendship, as amazingly as that is. And Hank has helped me professionally. He was a lawyer in town a good bit over the years, and then when he retired, he moved with Kay, his wife, to Clemson. And I think they were enjoying life a great deal. I think Hank is headed off this afternoon to a meeting down in Miami. Chronologically next, I believe, was I first met Bob Cook, now Robert Cook, Solicitor General of South Carolina, when he was on the night staff in the archives. And somebody gave me a tip that if I needed to find something in the labyrinth of the state archives, when Bob was working on night staff, he could just go find it. Well, Bob was also entering law school that year, and he could, in fact, find anything that was in the archives. He was a very voracious reader, a voracious sports fan, had a voracious interest in politics, and so guess what? We hit it off immensely and remain friends to this day. We still plan to go to some basketball games when the season rolls around. We might not be good, but we'll probably be there. Bob Cook actually introduced me to Vernon Burton. He called me up I think it was a Saturday night, it was a Friday or a Saturday night. He was working his shift in the state archives, which was his part-time job while he was in law school, and said, Vernon Burton's here. Do you want to meet him? So I trudged across the street, and Vernon had a little cubicle in the back, and Bob introduced me to Vernon, and that was my first but not last experience with Vernon Burton. And so you just keep kind of moving along, and things fall. Then in 1979, Peter Kuklanus and Deborah moved to South Carolina so Peter could work on his dissertation from Columbia University. And we became friends during their 4 or 5 years in Columbia and have remained friends ever since. We both got our PhD the same year. We both left town. I went to University of California, Berkeley, and Peter went back to Columbia University. And then the next year, we both got job offers, Peter at the University of North Carolina and me at the University of South Carolina, and we both were still are kind of in those positions. And Peter and I have been close friends ever since. There was that fairly common mixture between all of these friendships you mentioned is interest in sports, interested in politics, and just generally interested. Bob's wife Shirley was a part of this and went to a lot of basketball games with us, and I certainly should include her. She worked at the Calhoun paper, so I would see her on the first floor of the South Caroliniana Library for much of that time, and then in Gambrell Hall when they moved over there. So I would say Shirley Cook a lot during this time period. Probably the next biggest step came a number of years later when in 2010 I moved from being chair of the history department to being a vice provost under then Provost Michael Emeritus in Osborne. And there I met some of the most interesting people around. Most interested and talented. Mary Alexander, who's here today, was pretty new to the office, maybe less than a year about the time that I came over. Mary was smart. She helped me get my feet on the ground, helped especially to understand things about numbers. Sarah Livingston, it's been I don't know what the right title is, my administrative assistant, my person Friday, whatever. Sarah worked with me in the provost office, then a little brief break, and then when I was dean of arts and sciences, she was back to work for me again. Most of the time, I would say I was totally lost without Sarah. She had those skills of knowing what needed to be done and knowing how to point me in the direction of getting it done. She had, I guess still has, a version of the Radar O'Reilly challenge. It wasn't helicopters, but she could somehow just sense that there was something you needed to get to the bottom of it. And she would take off, in fact, to do exactly that. A little before that, when I was visiting in North Carolina doing some research, and Peter took me over to the history department, and getting an elevator in the history department, the UNC Chapel Hill, I ran into Chris Johnson. who was a student in Peter's class. I didn't know Chris at the time. I knew who he was. I knew that I.S. Levy Johnson was his father and so forth. But Peter introduced us. We became friends. Chris ended up doing his PhD under my direction here at the University of South Carolina. And he has now gone into the ministry, and he is funeral director here at the Levy's Funeral Home. So he's a multifaceted guy that I've enjoyed knowing and profited from knowing a long time along the way. One of the most interesting parts about working for the provost was working for Michael Emeritus. Michael is an immense talent for an administration, and he's in exactly the kind of job that he needs to be in. He has the ability to absorb and process information and make really good decisions, at least most of the time, that's about all any of us can do. I appreciated that, and I learned a lot about administration just from watching and listening to Michael. I do have a story. Michael gave me an assignment. I had to write something up, and I gave it to him at the end of the day, and he took it home to look it over. And he came back, and he handed it to me and said, you need to make a few corrections, but that's fine. And I looked at it, and these were very precise edits. And I said, man, if a chemical engineer is correcting my writing so carefully, I'm in trouble. And then Michael sort of casually says, I have an editor. And then I realized that his wife, Iro, who's not here today, was getting her PhD in the humanities at that time, and later did get one from the University of South Carolina. I felt a lot better about being edited by Iro than edited by Michael. Michael was a great boss in one sense. If you lost your cool in a situation and said one thing that maybe was just a little beyond what you should have said, he could get over that. The one example I remember is, I'm not going to give any names or details, but I was representing his office at a meeting, and the provost office needed something done, and so I asked how much it would cost, how many people we might need to hire to get it done, and they said, there's no amount of money and no amount of people that can do this. And I was really puzzled by that, and I just said out loud, no amount of money and no amount of people can get the job done? And they said, that's right. And I said, that's downright un-American. One of the people who was on the meeting from my side, as soon as we went out, he says, you're going to hear about that. You're going to hear about it at the end of the day. I did. Michael's secretary came down to my office and said, you come down and see the provost for a minute? And I said, here it comes. So I walked down, and he said, did you really say that? I said, yeah, absolutely, I did. I was frustrated, and that's what I said. He said, all he did was look up and say, good for you, and went back to work. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that a great deal about Michael. I enjoyed my time working in the dean's office. There are some people here now who've worked with me some in the dean's office, and that was a great experience as well. Well, just to close out, you expect historians to teach every once in a while, so for the next 90 seconds or so, I'm going to teach. And because I think history has a role in our society and our civilization, and I'm going to try to use a brief example for it. I think right now Americans are searching for a new understanding about their history, ones that can explain things like chronic political polarization, acute pandemic polarization, rampant social media addiction, heightened concern over armed global conflict, widening cultural and economic gaps between city and countryside or between state to state, and more. In this moment, I would like to call your attention to another moment, a moment when President Abraham Lincoln prepared his second inaugural address for March of 1865, a moment in which his efforts were bringing the American Civil War to its conclusion. As he prepared his inaugural remarks for that occasion, he stood with unprecedented political capital and military power. He was the savior of the Union, the emancipator of nearly 4 million enslaved blacks, and commander-in-chief of the most powerful land army the world had ever seen. But at that moment of destiny, he chose neither to bask in his own glow of his own accomplishments or look for new, unrivaled uses of military and political power. Instead, he thought about the over 700,000 Americans who had died. 400,000 on his side, nearly 300,000, about 300,000 on the other side. All Americans in Lincoln's eyes. As he prepared to make that last address, let's think again about the last paragraph of his second inaugural address. In which were the most moving words of a tremendously moving public speech. Lincoln closed by saying, "With malice toward none and charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, let us strive to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle and for his widow and his orphan, and to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations." Lincoln's choice of words there reflected a decision of a man humbled rather than emboldened by his presence at American history's most pivotal moment. Rather than look up for more evil to combat, he leaned over to serve. His audience heard no rhetoric about trampling out the vineyards where the grapes of wrath are stored, but rather about binding up the nation's wounds, about caring for widows and orphans, and about those people who were marginalized by the exercise of the unrivaled power Lincoln skillfully brought to bear against his foe. At that very critical and tempting moment, he spoke not of power, but of justice and mercy. He spoke not with boasting confidence, but with humility. And he offered a great national commission for harmony and concern for society's least, last, and lost. In doing so, Lincoln walked in the footsteps of the biblical Samaritan, who stopped by the side of the road to aid the suffering stranger, who bound up the stranger's wounds, who found him a place to stay, and he left enough funds to continue to pay for his care. History teaches many lessons, but only if we listen. And I'll conclude to say that there are 3 pastors here for me today, and I hope that's some influence of pastoral input. Don Hyde, John Cook, and Chris Johnson can take a bit of credit for that. Thank you all very much.
We got a prize for you here. All right, let's go down together. Well, that was fun. Thank you very much for attending. I believe it was earlier today, someone, maybe Benny Harris, talked about the dessert. So you're welcome to enjoy your dessert. The program is now concluded.